Everyone already knows it, it's tier maker time. Today, I'm going to go through all the different affinities and classes for Illuvials and Illuvium Arena PvP, Overworld, everything else, and then talk about which affinities and classes I think are the best and I think are the worst. Very simple stuff, S tier down to D tier. Let's jump into it. It's going to be really great. This tier list will also be public for all of you guys in case you want to check it out. Just so you know, I will be using the Illuvial Master Affinities thing to get all of the different descriptions of all of the different things. I'm going to be reading it out for you. I'm not necessarily going to show you this page a whole lot, but I'm going to be telling you what every effect is as I go, and I'll put this link for this page down in the description as well. It shows you everything. I'm pretty sure it's completely up to date. If some of it is a little bit off, I'm sorry. I don't remember them all myself off by heart, but hopefully this should cover just about everything. So let's jump back into it. The first thing I'm going to do, I do the 5 primary affinities. I'm going to go through the rest of them in order of alphabetical order. Then I'm going to do the 5 primary classes and so on and so forth. So it'll be easy for you to track through. Hopefully I'll put a timestamp for where the classes begin in case you're only interested in them. But let's kick it off with air, and air gains additional dodge chance, but air units gain more. Now, the team-wide dodge chance is 5, 10, and 15 at 3, 5, and 7. And for for just air units, it's 10, 20, and 30. So with 7 air units, you can get up to 30% dodge chance for just your air units, which is pretty solid, but it's a lot less impactful than you might think. I don't think Illuvials really get off take 10 hits before they're gone. So 30% really only saves you from 3 of those hits. So it's not that big of an impact if you ask me. Whereas if units were taking 20, 30 hits and there were more tanky air units, it might be more impactful. But giving team-wide dodge chance, especially to your bulwarks, is pretty effective. I think air is definitely going to go in B, but I could definitely see it moving up higher. So the next one we've got here is fire. Is your team gains additional damage. At 3, 5, and 7, you get 10, 20, and 35% for the entire team, and 30, 50, and 75% for the fire units. I think this fire unit specific one is bonkers. Now, 35% for everyone else is okay, but a lot of your other archetypes are better off with Omegas and things like that, so they don't get that big of an advantage from it. But 75% for fire units is a pretty insane buff and very powerful, especially on your fighters, like your fighter fire links. That thing can destroy. So I definitely think this is going to go in maybe A, hesitant, maybe higher in B than air, but definitely an A, maybe not an S tier for this one. I'm going to be pretty frugal with my S tiers. I don't see too many being the bottom either. I feel like a lot of these are going to sit in the middle, but we'll see how I go. The next one we've got for you is water. Now, your team gains additional energy regeneration every single second. Water units gain more. 2, 4, and 6 for everyone, and 5, 10, and 15 energy regen for the water units. In my experience, some of the really big Omegas happen at 200 energy. Now, this energy regen is great, but I haven't seen it be that good. I know a lot of people are going to contend with me here. I think I'm going to put it above air in B, but that's only because at the 3 proc, air and fire do pretty well with them. At the 3 proc, it's just not that good. The 2 for the team and 5 for the water units, it's just not that good. But when you get to the 5 water units, it's really impactful, whereas fire with even 3 units, still really impactful on the board. And I feel like those are some of the synergies you're going to get more often in Arena PvP. So I'm going to put it, actually I'll put it below air for now. I don't like how the early game ones are, I don't think the early game ones are going to do that well when it comes to PvP, even though we haven't played it yet. In survival, I would admit that it's easy to get to the 7 water units, and so it's a lot more impactful on the game. But until we see it in action in PvP, I don't think it's going to be that good. So I'm going to lose my voice real quick, aren't I? All right. So the next one we've got here is Earth. Sweet. All right. So your team gains additional grit and resolve. Earth units gain more. Now, I can't remember what grit and resolve mean, so I'm going to really quickly look that up. Okay, so it's OP. That's what I thought. All right, so let's go back to Earth. All right, so your team gains additional grit and resolve. Now, 10, 20, and 35 for the entire team, 25, 50, and 80 for Earth units. And basically what grit and resolve are they reduce the incoming damage by 1 per grit and resolve. So 20 grit is 20 physical damage it negates. Now, even your stage 2 Illuvitars are only really doing 70 damage with an attack. Obviously, you can bump them up with fire and things like that. But that's the interesting part. The fire synergy boosts by a percentage, but grit and resolve is a flat number, which is a big difference. And there aren't a whole lot of piercing things in this. I think when you do a crit, which is not RNG, it's just statistically happens. When you do a crit, you probably go through grit and resolve. But besides that, it's pretty solid, like 80 for earth units at 7 earth. You could probably negate pretty much everything. Now, an Omega will go through okay because it's got a much higher cap threshold, but like you're pretty much negating all fighters at that point. And for that reason, I'm actually going to chuck Earth as my first S tier. Especially giving 10 grit and resolve team wide is very powerful. You're negating like 100 damage on every like group attack against your team, right? Insane. All right, so the last basic affinity we're going to look at is nature. So your team gains additional health and percentage max health regen. Nature units gain more. So 100 health and regen. It's just a lot of regen stuff. So they gain additional health of 300 health at 7. Not that good. Kind of hard to get to the max nature anyways. 1% regen, not that good. 1% max health regen. Like it's good on like a tanky unit. There are some things like Blotto, but it's just not that good. And 2% for nature units. I'm not convinced. I'm actually going to chuck this one down in C. Although nature has some amazing alluvials, I just don't feel like the nature synergy is doing all that much, to be honest. All right, so the next one we'll jump in is to Bloom. I'll try and speed this up a little bit. I've already gone 7 minutes and I've gotten 5 synergies done and I'm standing, so this is going to be interesting. Bloom units blossom 9 seconds after battle start, and every 9 seconds afterwards they gain max health, omega power, and health regen. At 3 Bloom units, they get about 200 max health, 20 omega power, and 25 health regen. Now, that sounds pretty good. So it sounds like they only get that health regen once off at the start and at the 25 at the 9 seconds. But if it's overtime, it definitely makes this better. I think it might be overtime, I'm not sure. This is decent. I like the idea of them gaining a ton of health. From what I've seen, they gain a lot of health from this, so it must be like 25 health regen a second, and maybe it stacks, which would make a whole lot of sense. But yeah, they do pretty well. The Omega Power I don't feel as impactful, and that's why I'm going to chuck it high up on B. If the health regen was more impactful, then I might have put it higher than that. The Omega Power, sorry. We're going to leave it there. So Dust. This is Earth and Air. Bloom is Earth and Nature. Dust and Earth and Air. They blind and reduce Omega Power for enemies in a medium area when they Omega. 10 Omega Power blind lasts for 3 seconds. So they only reduce it by 10, 15, or 20 Omega Power depending on how many you have on the board, which I feel like is not enough. The blind could last for up to 6 seconds though, which is pretty insane. It happens every time they Omega. That's bonkers. 3 at 2 Dust, I think is solid. 4.5 at 3 Dust, very, very solid. I've seen how impactful that can be. If they Omega maybe 3 times in a game, you're basically blinding potentially large amounts of enemies for about 12, 13 seconds total, which is like 30% of the round's time. So you're causing some real strife for your opponent. I'm going to put it in A. It's definitely not better than Fire, but it's solid. The next one we've got is Frost. So Frost units apply blind in a medium area shortly after combat start and frost around themselves every 3 seconds. Again, I'm going to go to the dictionary and have a look at what Frost does. Frost is a condition that reduces attack speed by 3% per stack. It lasts 10 seconds and can stack up to 9 times. Once max stats are hit, the target will be frozen for a 2-second duration and the stacks will be cleansed afterwards. So basically you're dropping their attack speed by about 20% on average, I would say. And once max stats are hit, you freeze them. So pretty decent. You need to get 9 times. 9 times Frost has to be applied. And if I go back to Affinities, they frost around them every 3 seconds, which means they can only really apply Frost maybe twice in a round, likely just once, which makes it a lot less impactful. That being said, at 3 in the synergy and 4 in the synergy, you apply 2 and 3 Frost respectively, which is actually pretty solid. So applying 3 Frost, every 9 seconds you would freeze everything around all of your Frost units. So it sounds almost like a perma stun. I have used this build quite a bit with Slash and Jotun. It's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet. They also get the benefits from the air the air synergies. So they get a lot of dodge chance, a lot more survivability, and they apply blind when combat starts, which is great on something like a Slashin. You can blind some of the scions at the other side of the board. I'm going to put this one second on S. I'm surprised I put it here, but applying 3 frost, I think you can get 4 frost on the board. It sounds good. I can't deny it. It sounds insane. It sounds insane. Okay. Granite. Basically, they get 15 grit and resolve, and they get invulnerable at the start of the match. 4, 5, and 6 seconds, depending on how many granite you have. 15, 25, and 35 grit and resolve, depending on how many granite you have. Now, 35 grit and resolve is decent. It's just not as good as earth. The invulnerable is great, but unfortunately, one of your granite is not a tank. It's C4us. And it doesn't do that much help. It's probably great early on, but in the later rounds, probably less so. Although I think granite is awesome and works really great in Titan Ore, I've been using it a lot recently, and it just hasn't been that impactful. I'm actually going to chuck it at the bottom of B for now. Oh, I'm tempted to put it in C. A lot of people are going to kill me. I'm going to just chuck it in C. Screw it. I'm going to chuck it in C. It's just not that impactful, and Earth is just better than it. I don't know how else to put it. Okay. So the next one is Inferno, the classic one that Ramfire is. Their first Omega superheats the air, dealing damage every second to enemies for as long as they live. That can't be right. As long as they live. So at 4 Inferno, it's 100 energy damage per second. No. Scott, I'm not even gonna humor this. I've never noticed that before. I don't know if they changed that at some point. That sounds OP. It's only after their first Omega, so they can't kick it off until later. You gotta help them survive. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll put it at the top of A, because there's a lot of moving parts you have to get right. But if you can pull it off, it's pretty much game over if all your Inferno units are Mega at some point. Like, it's energy damage too, which impacts a lot more things, I think, but I can't be for sure. Okay, so Magma. One of my favorites, because Scoriox is Magma. Magma units create molten ground around themselves, which spreads over time. Now, enemies on molten ground take damage every second. Allied units on molten ground gain grit and resolve. All right? It spreads over time. I never really noticed that. Okay, so for 2, 3, and 4 Magma units, it's the same for all the composites. 40, 60, and 80 energy damage per second to enemies, which is really strong, but it affects a much lesser area. And your allies gain 20, 30, and 40 grit and resolve. I think this is solid because Seer is one of the best units in the game. Magma's got to be great. I'm going to sound biased putting it too high up, but I think it's going to go at the back of S here. It's just good all round. It seems pretty OP, to be honest. But when I've seen it impact, it's not that good. And they just naturally create it. I feel like it's been bugged in survival mode and hasn't really done what it's supposed to do in PB2. But I could be wrong. Maybe it has been, and I'm really stupid, and I don't know why I think Magma is so good. Maybe I shouldn't be. All right. So Mud. Mud units gain additional energy on attack, and their attacks reduce the attack speed of their target. Up to 3 times, but 12% per hit, and at 4 Mud units, 16% reduction per hit. So you get up to 50% basically. And they gain additional energy, which is 7 energy, which is really good. If you can give augments and things that improve their attack speed, they're genuinely getting more energy, because currently it doesn't actually work that way. If you have attack once every second, you might get 10 energy, right? But if you attack twice every second, you're actually only going to get 5 energy per attack. It all balances out naturally in the way the Illuvium system works. But this changes all that. Attack speed matters after you do this. So that's actually pretty crazy. Now I'm putting too much stuff high up. I'll put Mud up the top. Let me think. But the actual alluvials that are Mud just aren't that good. I'll put it at the back of A. I think that's fine. Okay, next we've got Toxic. So Toxic units apply poison every 2 seconds in a medium area around themselves, and gain health on takedown. So they gain 400 health on takedown, which is actually really, really good. 600 health if you have maxed out the synergy, and they apply 3 poison, and they just apply it in a medium area around themselves, which I think is really good because Rip Lance is great, but it's single target. So that actually really helps. If we go to the dictionary to just double check what poison does, it deals 1% of max health as pure damage every second. Per second, it lasts 5 seconds and stacks up to 5 times. So you can do 5% of max health every second once you're full stacks. And at full stacks, it removes the ability to heal, which I did not realize. I wish I knew that. I feel kind of silly the way I've been playing Arena right now, but I wish I knew that. So it can basically prevent healing. They apply it every 2 seconds, so you've max stacked anything next to you after 10 seconds, which is pretty solid. And they gain health on takedown, which is easier for them because they're preventing healing for 3 seconds. Looks like it only activates once at max stats. I don't think it resets or anything, so maybe you're not resetting healing forever, so maybe it's not that good. I definitely think I'm going to put it at the top of B. It's good. It doesn't feel as impactful as some of the other ones, but it's good. People are probably going to say that it's better than that. Anyways, shock. Each shock unit that's alive on the board calls lightning to strike the lowest energy resist enemy every 4 seconds. At max shock units, it's 600 energy damage. I like how it's targeting the lowest energy resist enemy, where I feel that if you have 4 shock units, for example, they're all going to call down 600 energy damage at the same time on the thing that's most vulnerable. So basically, it's going to freely kill the opposing DPS if your shock units stay alive. That can't be right. That sounds too good to be true. Maybe if the shock doesn't kill them straight away, you're probably in a little bit of a trouble, but I know that the Ophisto lines Omega stacks really well with this by the sounds of it. This sounds insane. I'm going to chuck it right at the top here. It sounds bonkers. I know it's probably not, but I can't get that image out of my head of it just knocking out a DPS every 4 seconds. That sounds outrageous. So Spore. Spore units gain dodge chance and upon dodging, heal and reduce the energy efficiency of their attacker. So at max stats, you get 25 dodge chance, which is decent. Stack that with all your air stuff, and they're pretty much dodging every second attack. They heal 100 when they dodge, so that's really good. Like, this is at max stacks. And they get 2% reduced energy efficiency. I don't really know how that's going to help you. I don't know how good that is, but sure, whatever. 100 heal and 25 dodge chance. It's pretty good. I want to chuck it at the bottom of A. I don't think it's going to be that impactful because you have to... Typically, these sort of air units and stuff don't deal that much damage, and you can't exactly... I don't know if you can dodge Omegas either. So it doesn't stop you from losing the game, but it's definitely great. It's definitely good. And your other Spore is Adorius, which isn't really an offensive character anyways. So your next one is Steam. On battle start every 10 seconds, they are engulfed with Steam, gaining energy regen for a duration and permanent Omega power. Permanent Omega power is pretty sane. So every 10 seconds, they keep stacking it. At max synergy, you get 45 Omega power, 10 energy regen for 5 seconds, which is good. I don't think it's that good, but it's good. I've used Steam quite a bit. It's pretty solid. But the Omega power just takes too long to kick off. Like every 10 seconds you get 45, which is great and all, but there are augments that can give you more than that off the bat, you know, like, so it's not that great. I'm going to chuck it above these two in C. I've told you it's going to be very center heavy. All right, next we've got Tempest. They gain dodge chance and steal energy from their attacker when they dodge. So at max stacks, you get 32 dodge chance and steal 4 energy. 4 energy is not enough. It's just not enough. 32 dodge chance is great. I got nothing else to say. Stealing 4 energy when you dodge, it's not enough. I'm sorry. You can steal that 4 energy from lots of different things at once, I suppose, in a sense, but you're not dodging enough to make it 4 energy. If it was like 10 energy, then I could see that working really well, but it's going down the bottom. I'm sorry. Tsunami. After using their Omega abilities, they gain energy. 40% of energy cost gained, 55% and 75% at max. That's wild. Like, I'm just imagining an accident popping off shields every 2 seconds, which is literally what would happen. I can't recall any other Tsunami. I think Geyser might be. Geyser's not Tsunami, surely. Let me quickly check what Geyser is. Geyser is Tsunami, which makes this actually really good. But it's a lot of investment for simply being able to cast Omegas a lot of time, especially when 2 of them are supportive Omegas. You're not exactly using it to deal damage to your opponent, which is important in any battle. So even though it's probably going to keep your team alive forever, eventually the timer, the enemy DPS, poison, it's going to catch up to you. It's not going to work. I'm actually going to chuck this one above Tempest, but right down the bottom. I'm sorry. So Verdant. The first time Verdant units drop below 60% health, they heal for a percentage of their max health over 4 seconds and create a permanent large healing area. What? 35 health recovery per second in that healing area. I would assume the healing areas stack with each other, which actually makes this pretty insane. You can get this up to like 150 health per second, which is good. It's very, very good. And they get 60% of their max health recovered if you have max thing. I'm liking that. I'm actually going to chuck this below Inferno. No, I'm going to chuck this at the bottom of a, maybe above Spore, but it's solid. It's not perfect, but it's solid. Okay. So next we've got Wildfire. On Omega, they set the nearest enemy ablaze for 5 seconds. All right. This blaze has Vamp, which means it heals them, I'm pretty sure. Deals damage over time and can spread up to 3 times. 200% max energy as energy damage over the duration. Not bad. At max stacks, it's 400% max energy. Very, very good. With 50% Vamp. I've got to look up Vamp because maybe there's some numbers we have on it. All right, I can't find Vamp. It doesn't look like Vamp is actually in the dictionary. I'm pretty sure Vamp is healing. So 50% healing and it spreads up to 3 times and you set them ablaze every 5 seconds. I'm having another shock moment here. I'm just probably not as good as shock because it takes a while to kick off, but it seems pretty outrageous. Although it is based on the max energy and some of the Wildfire units don't have that greater energy, boosting that with augments is going to help. But I might actually just chuck it at the bottom. I think maybe I was too bullish on Magma and probably Frost as well. They're feeling like they don't belong here anymore. And then Dust probably goes down here. I'm just reshuffling a little bit. That feels a bit better. There's a lot in A, but I want to keep S quite slim. These 3 feel good for S. I'm happy with that now. And now we get to move on to the classes. I always forget what they're called. The term for all of them is synergy, and then you have affinities and classes. Okay. The first one we've got on the list is Bulwark. Bulwark is the one for tanks. So your team gains additional physical and energy resist. Bulwark units gain more. 20, 50, and 80 at 7 Bulwark. 200 for Bulwark units though. So 80 for the team, 200 for units, which is good. It's not as good as Grit and Resolve. I'm going to look it up quickly so that I'm not getting it wrong. Percentage enemy energy damage reduction. Yeah. So it's my understanding that it works quite similar to TFT from memory, whereas it's not like a super linear relationship. It's not like 1 energy resist equals 1 damage reduced like Grit and Resolve. It's more so if you have 200 energy resist, you reduce 50% of damage. 300 energy resist, and it's like 67% of damage, and that sort of thing. And it's like a curve or it's some sort of linear relation, but basically the more you get, the better. But at some point it does have some serious diminishing returns, depending if your opponent's attack speed at least. But it's still good. It's still good. And yeah, so I think that's solid. I'm going to put it at the top of B. It's good, but it's not that good. That being said, Bulwark and Earth together are pretty insane combo. So definitely stack them in your team. The next one we've got is Fighter, and your team gains additional attack speed. Fighter units gain more. So at max synergy, you're getting 70% for fighter units, 40 and 25% for the other 2. And for the team wide at max, you're getting 35% attack speed, which is really, really good. I don't think it's that impactful because it doesn't boost the amount of energy regen you're getting and all that sort of stuff. Not really. But 70% for fighter units is pretty good. I don't know. Fighter's a tricky one. It's good, but it doesn't feel that good at the time because, well, non-tack units are quite squishy. So you've got to make sure they're really impactful to really get the most out of it. I'm still going to put it at the back end of... No, I'm going to put it just below Bulwark, I think. Right here, I might put Dust above them. No, I'm going to put Dust below them. They're like right at the back end of A. I'm going to chuck them in B. I think that feels good. I might chuck water at the front of C. Probably should have put that lower. I think I'll chuck air at the front of C as well. Okay. Next one, Scion. Where's Scion? I've got these out of order a little bit. Okay, so your team gains additional Omega Power, Scion units gain more. 130 max for Scion units, 60 for everyone else. Then you've got 40 and 90 for the middle tier, which is pretty good, and 20 and 50 for the lowest tier. So 130 Omega Power. I'm going to assume that's good. Everything uses Omega Power differently, so it's really hard for me to gauge how good the numbers actually are. Some of them are like times Omega Power, plus Omega Power, whatever it might be. Omega Power times 2. I don't know. It's always different. So I'm kind of cautious about this one. I definitely don't think it's as good as these two. I don't think it's as good as this other stuff here. So I'm going to chuck it at the bottom of B. And the 50 Scion at 3 synergy just isn't that good. It's much better on these other two than it is for Scion. So I'm going to go with that. Next, we've got a fan favorite, Rogue. So innate, at the start of combat, they blink to the opposite side of the board. As you know, they're like assassins. Your team gains additional crit chance and crit amp. Rogue units gain more. Crit amp, I believe, improves the amount of damage your actual crit does. And it's at the max synergy, 30% crit chance and 20 amp for the team, which is pretty good. And 55% chance and 30 amp for rogue units. So your rogues are pretty much critting 2 out of every 3 attacks, which is pretty solid because you include their original crit chance, right? And 30 amp. 30 amp just doesn't seem that good. I'm going to quickly look up the dictionary to double check if I'm not seeing this right. By default, it is 150%. And so with 30, you would go to 180%. Just not that good. I'm sorry. 30 bonus on crit amp is just simply not that good. I'm going to chuck this right down the bottom. It's going to go below nature down here. It's good. It's not that good. Okay. It's definitely better than these two though. Those two suck. All right. So empath, your team gains a shield and increased healing efficiency on battle start. Empath units gain more. So 200 shield and 10% increased healing efficiency. 425% for empath units. This one's a really funny one because the empaths are actually the ones that don't need the healing efficiency. So even though they get like 85% healing efficiency, they don't need it that much. They're supposed to be protected either way. And a big shield for them as well, not that helpful. They're supposed to be protected either way. The 400 shield for the team and 35% increased healing efficiency at max. Not that good because your whole team's filled up with empaths, which is not going to do enough damage to help you survive long enough to make that 400 shield matter. So I might have to chuck this one up here. It's kind of funny though, because the empath units are some of the best units in the game, but I mean, they simply just don't deal enough damage. So it's really hard to put this high up because it takes too much commitment. You're not getting enough out of it. The 3 empath is just not doing that much. I think 3 nature is probably better than 3 empath. All right. Should have got a glass of water. Okay. The next one we've got here is Aegis. I haven't used Aegis a lot much. I think Arcalion has this one. On combat start, Aegis units shield their closest ally and grant them a portion of their resistances. 400 shield, 40% of their physical and energy resist. Very cool. 600 shield, 50%. 800 shield, 60% of their physical and energy resist. That's pretty sick. I really like it. It sounds really hard to use, if I'm being completely honest. I'm going to chuck it at the back of B because it's really good, but I think there's too many mental gymnastics to get it to work right. And when it has to be so close to the unit you're trying to protect, it's a much easier target for your opponent to get to. So I don't think it's that good. It's a bit too hard to pull off. Arcanite. Arcanite units gain additional energy attack damage from their Omega power, and on Omega, gain attack speed for 4 seconds. So at the highest synergy, they get 60% of Omega power as attack damage, which is, I mean, it's okay. And 40% of their energy cost as attack speed. I think that's really good. Boosting attack speed just from the energy cost is really, really solid. That sounds like it probably boosts it quite a bit. 60% of the Omega power as attack damage is probably okay, as long as it's not draining the Omega power and the attack speed. I don't think it is. But I don't know how to put this one. Attack damage. I just don't think of it's Omega power and attack and what is it, attack speed, energy cost. They're typically quite low numbers in general. You're getting like 100 and 100 maybe. So you're getting 60 Omega power, which is not better than some of those other mage synergies. And you're getting 40 attack speed maybe. So we're adding an extra 2 or 3 attacks per second. Well, no, sorry. An extra attack every 2-3 seconds maybe, which is pretty good. I'm going to chuck it similar. I'm going to chuck it maybe at the top of C. It's pretty good. It's a composite after all, but it's just not that strong. Behemoth. Every 5th attack, they deal increased damage and stun their target. I've used this one quite a bit. I recommend it. Every 5th attack, they stun, and they have max health as well. So at max synergy, they get 25% max health, which is pretty good on the right unit. As additional, 25% max health or whatever that calc is additional physical damage, and they stun for 1.4 seconds. A stun is a little bit low on the low side, but if you're stunning maybe, not 20, maybe 5-6 times a game, you're getting 7 seconds worth of stuns to probably 1 unit, which is not that good. But 25% max health as additional physical damage. It's pretty interesting. You can turn like a tank into more of a damage dealer. I don't think it's that good. It's interesting. It's not necessarily good. At the bottom of B, I think this one's going. Berserker. Every 3rd attack, Berserker units deal increased damage and gain stacking attack speed for the rest of combat. So at the max percent of this, it's 6% attack speed they're stacking. They could probably get that up to 30% at the last few seconds of the game. And they deal increased damage on that 3rd attack, which is actually really cool. 225% additional damage. If you line that thing up with a crit, I hope they stack together. That would be super cool. Like if you get all the right numbers together, so they're always critting on their Berserker hit. I think that's pretty solid. I think it happens frequently enough. It makes sense. The attack speed stack doesn't do enough, but with the right augments, I think these units can be pretty strong. I'm definitely going to chuck that at the bottom of A, making that our highest class right now. All right, next we've got Enchanter, which from what I understand is everyone's favorite right now. It's what they're using to get to wave 30 on the leaderboard. So on Omega, they grant their allies a shield for 6 seconds and deal pure damage in a medium area around those allies. 220 shield, 150 pure damage, and at max 340 shield and 250 pure damage. It's good. It's at the top. I'm not going to disagree with anyone there. I used it the other day even. Just like grants a shield to everyone, which is good on its own, and then 250 pure damage. Regular damage would be okay. It might be A or B, but pure damage ignores all these other effects. 250, and it all seems to stack together quite nicely. If your whole team's bunched up and they all get the shield, I'm pretty sure they just nuke something that they're standing next to. There's nothing more to say on that. It's good. It's very, very good. So Harbingers gain additional resistances for 5 seconds on Omega and when vanquished. Wow, it's a mouthful. Increase the Omega power of the highest Omega power ally. That's pretty cool. So it seems like supportive tank. Book Science, supportive mage. So on Omega, they gain 120 physical and energy resist at max stacks, and they grant 160 Omega to the highest power Omega power ally. They probably stack that too. So basically, if you have a lot of Harbingers and like one Invoker at the back, by the end of the game, that Invoker is going to be just like killing everything with 1 Omega. I actually think that's really sick. I definitely don't think it's as good as Frost or Inferno. So I might have to chuck it up there. It's very solid. Let's put it that way. It's very solid. Okay. Next one, I've got Invoker, which is one of my favorites because I love mage classes and most things. I probably built a lot of Scion decks. You guys will know to expect that. Invoker units gain Omega and they grant all Invokers Omega power. So every single time any Invoker Omegas, 40% of that max energy is granted as Omega power to all the other Invokers, which is good if you have 4 of them. So basically, if they all Omega at the same time, you would get if the average energy is say 100, you get 40% of that 4 times, which is 160. You do that twice in a game, and all your Invokers have like 300-400 more Omega power than they did about halfway into the round. They can last that long. That's pretty impressive. I'm going to chuck that at the top of A. I don't think it's quite S. It takes too long to get off, but it's good. Colossus, they gain max health and resistances, and 1 second after combat start, they taunt enemies in a large area for 3 seconds, which is good. At max number of Colossus 4, you get 1100 max health, 90 energy, and physical resistance. If this was Grit and Resolve, I'd be more excited for it. Energy and physical resistance, it's good. 1100 max health is really, really good. And the taunt is really solid as well. Overall, I feel it's very balanced. It does a lot of things really well, but it doesn't do anything exceptionally, I don't think. Like, no one's aiming for your tanks, so boosting them up isn't that good. And the taunt only lasts 3 seconds. And if they're not next to it, it's in a large area, but if they're not next to it, they're not going to get taunted. So it's just not, it's balanced, but not that strong. Mystic, I believe Geyser is Mystic. So every 8 seconds, Mystic units shield allies for 5 seconds, and they gain attack speed while they shield it. So 200 shield, which is pretty much nothing at max Mystic, I'm afraid, and 30% attack speed, which is not that good. 30% is great and all, but as I said, I don't think this is going to improve their energy gain or anything like that. So it's just not that strong. I'm going to chuck it above Empath. I'm sorry. Mystic's just not that good. People might disagree with me. It doesn't sound that good, although I haven't used it heaps. So keep that in mind. So Phantom, they gain crit chance. It's a rogue one, obviously. They gain crit. Their Omega ability can critically strike. When dealing a crit, they gain Omega power. Damn. And after they land, after initially blinking, they deal energy damage to surrounding enemies in a medium area. All right. That's a lot. All right. So they land there. They gain 25% crit chance, which is okay. This is if you have 4 of them. They gain 4 Omega power on crit, which is why even bother? And they deal 200 damage to surrounding enemies when they land. I feel like I'm missing something because that seems really bad. Unless I'm wrong, I'm going to chuck that right at the bottom. It doesn't seem that good. Oh, wait, the other thing was that their Omegas can crit. Okay, that's pretty solid. Your Omega being able to crit is good. I'm going to chuck it above Scion here because it's solid, but it's not that strong. Omegas can crit's a big deal, especially since you've got something like Umbre that can use it. So, Predator. Also another rogue one. Predator units gain crit chance, crit amp, and execute. And upon landing after blinking, their first attack crits with 100% increased damage. They get a double crit, which is pretty solid. This is double rogue. That makes sense. 50% crit chance, which is really good. 60% amp, and execute enemies under 18% health. Especially since they get their first attack crits with 100% increased damage. That means they're going from a double damage attack, doubling again, or it might be just 300% on the initial. And then they can execute below 18% health. They could take out some squishy units in one hit. I'm liking them. They're going to go below Inferno. They're going to go below Frost, I think, but just above Inferno. They do similar things to Inferno, but maybe slightly better. It's a bit more targeted. But if you hit something you don't want to hit, then it's not really going to help you, like a big tank or something. So Revenant. Revenant used to be really good. I don't know if it still is. They gain crit chance on takedown. And on takedown, they shield allies in a medium area for 5 seconds. Upon landing after blinking, they decrease the attack speed of enemies in a medium area for 5 seconds. Only by 20%. So when you have 4 of them, they gain 35% crit chance, which is good. It's not that good, but it's good. And on takedown, they shield allies in the area for 500. But the Revenants aren't always near your team, and especially in PvP Arena, we're going to see teams split up a lot more. In Survival, it was a lot easier to predict, and you can make sure they grouped up at a certain time. I don't think that's going to be just as possible with Revenant. I'm going to chuck it at the top here, just above Arcanite. I don't think it's that good, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. This is one that I'm having a hard time gauging. So I could definitely be really wrong about that. Next, we've got Slayer, which is Rogue and Fighter. They gain crit chance, like pretty much everything. Everything that's a rogue composite. And on Vanquish, gain attack speed. I don't know what Vanquish is. Upon landing after blinking, Slayer gains 40% attack speed for 5 seconds. which is pretty good, but they only get it for 5 seconds, so it's just not that good. I wish it was better than that. I don't know what to say. 50% crit chance when you have 4 of them. It's pretty solid. I can get around that. Let's quickly have a look at what vanquish means. If that's not just eliminate an enemy. Oh, it just when it strikes the killing blow. Okay, right. That's what I thought. So what do they get on vanquish? Oh, they gain crit chance, and on vanquish they gain attack speed. Okay, so they get 30% attack speed every single time they take down something. Really, you should only be taking out 2 to 1 is good. It's a good ratio. So taking out 2 units is 60% attack speed. It's just not that good. I'm going to chuck Slayer probably at the bottom of B. Honestly, it's just not that good. Sorry. So Templar is Empath plus Fighter, which is really weird. Healer and Fighter. Every third attack, they deal increased damage and decrease their target's resistances, which is solid. Distributing it to allies in a large area, also solid. All right, so they deal increased damage, 80%, 160% increased when you have 4 of them, which is really good. And they decrease the resistances by 9, which is pretty solid. Like if you have 4 of these, taking 36 every couple seconds and distributing it to your team, that's pretty insane. That's pretty insane. It sounds like it's split up though. So your 36 goes 6 to you, 6 to you, 6 to you. So hopefully it doesn't work that way. It's 36 to everyone, but that's okay. Still seems decent. I really like that. I think that's a really just like a cool thing, to be honest. I'm going to chuck it below Frost, probably below Inferno. I don't think it's as good as these two, but it's still pretty solid. So Vanguard units gain crit chance. On takedown, they enrage, taking less damage and taunting enemies. Upon landing after blinking, their first attack stuns for 2 seconds. They gain 50% crit chance, and they take 70% less damage when they're enraged, I think. Yep, so every time they eliminate something, for 4 seconds, they take 70% less damage. Just not that good. I don't know what to say. It's okay. It's going to go below here. I can't remember what that one was. Revenant. It's going to go below Revenant. It's okay. So rogues are very hit and miss, it sounds like. So we have some good rogues at the top and some terrible rogues down the bottom. So they're very top and bottom. So I hope you guys enjoy the tier list. I hope you learned something about what I value in my different affinities and classes, and where I think these affinities and classes are going to go when we play the game, when we play PvP. What metas are going to come out? Am I going to be wrong? Is there going to be all people using Tempest? What's your favorite affinity and class? Please let me know down below in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate you all rocking up and bearing with me as I go through this tier list. Hope you enjoyed it.